editing videos is one of the worst things that none of us really want to do. And I've spent hundreds of thousands of dollars hiring video editors over the last few years, but we've been using this tool called Descript, and you're going to see we're using Descript to edit this.
One of our first support members here, now a sales engineer here at Descript. My name is Marcelo. Nice to meet you guys.
And because we've been banging on Descript for so long, I think we've been maybe causing him headaches or whatnot because we try out these features. But I wanted you guys to understand, because a lot of you guys have videos, a lot of out and about as you're meeting with clients, as you are driving around, as you have podcasts, tons and tons and tons of video that you often ship off to some other guy in another country. And Descript has made it so that, I've called them the Swiss Army knife of video editing, because we started using them when they had overdub. I know you changed the name of it.
Yeah.
Studio sound, removing filler words, chopping it up into different social media snippets, publishing the blog posts, like all that stuff. And now because of AI agents, they have an API, and I wanted Marcelo, because he's now an engineer, moved up from support. Few people know more about products than the people that started in support and become engineers. To say, what does that mean for those of us that are not necessarily professional creators, but we do create a lot of video? And how do we think about using Descript, especially if we're already using Claude as like our central brain, and we have a knowledge base of all of our, like who we are and who we work with and how we make money and that kind of stuff, so that we don't get YouTube and Instagram and Facebook and whatnot.
Yeah, absolutely. So with Descript, we had within the past year and a half or 2 years a feature release called Underlord. Underlord is our in-app editing AI assistant, right? So we have an agent inside of Descript that allows you to edit the same way that you would edit as a user yourself, right? We've kind of zoomed out, and within the past, I want to say 30 to 45 days, we've released an API that allows you to take actions with Descript outside of Descript. So allowing you within a command line to utilize an import and an edit API. In the future, we'll be able to utilize some other endpoints as well for editing pieces. Yeah. But kind of like you mentioned, instead of having to get into the UI or into the tool, how do we use this as part of our workflow? How do we zoom out, and instead of having to rely strictly on an agent inside of one tool or my ability to utilize one tool, how do I zoom out and I get that as part of my workflow, or as part of my knowledge base, or accessing my knowledge base as part of the workflow? Bringing that holistically into how your business runs or how your workflow runs, from filming to publishing and everything in between.
Isn't it crazy? Because now these AI agents are like people, so that the agents are using the tool instead of us having to come in. One of the biggest headaches I had with Descript was you guys would keep changing the UI, and I wouldn't know where to click on stuff. But now that we have agents that are logging into WordPress, into Descript, into Google Docs, into our CRMs and whatnot, that's because no one wants to sit there and edit files in Premiere or After Effects.
Absolutely.
And those of you guys that are watching, maybe some of you have messed around in Final Cut Pro and these other sorts of tools, but let's be honest, none of us really want to work on that stuff. We don't want to work on our own cars, right? So what does this mean for Descript in terms of you guys are moving it so that through the API, these agents can do the work, but meanwhile, these AIs are coming down this way and saying, well, we don't need, SaaS companies are dead because, well, what if Claude can just do the whole thing? You guys are moving upstream and they're moving downstream back on the tools. How do people think about this? Because some people are telling me, well, I just eliminated 10 different tools that I was using because I just had Claude build all these tools for me.
Yeah, I think it totally depends on the type of workflow that you want and the type of end product that you want, right? I am someone that's been an audio engineer and someone that was a user of Descript before I started working at Descript, right? And some things, even though there's an automation of parts of the workflow, I will not be completely removed out of a piece. I'm still a creative element in there, right? Now, there's things that can be automated away. There's things that I don't want to have to do. Like you were mentioning earlier, no one wants to get in the weeds, right? Yeah. I remember opening Logic Pro way back when I was a freelancer, and having to find the peak of the waveform when someone said, and now I can see in text that editing. But I don't want to have to go through the weeds and do that myself, right? I'm getting these tasks, a Claude agent or something that's a specific UI, I'm having that solved by something, but I'm still at the end of the day the creative at the end of that line that gets that final product out. So.
Marcelo, what message do you have for our young adults that are AI builders and they are creating videos, they're serving local businesses like plumbers and HVAC and roofing, and they're going about collecting all this video, and they're maybe good with people, but they don't want to mess around with these different tools. is Descript at the point where they could just sign up for a license and then basically tell it what to do? Because when they hear like Claude Code or what, like they don't want to touch programming or HTML.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
Like you're saying, to XML API, like that scares people. What does this mean for a young adult who's like cool with using AI tools and talking to the AI? They're making videos on their iPhones, but there's that last mile gap of like turning that into YouTube and Instagram and all that stuff.
Absolutely, yeah. I don't want anyone to think they have to like go into the matrix and learn the command line or anything crazy style. I think the thing to take away from this is that how you communicate both to your customer and to the agent or to the LLM that you're interacting with matters the most. If you can clearly dictate what you are looking for in an end result to whatever tool you're looking for, these are only getting smarter and more actionable as long as you can clearly articulate your end result and the things that you want in the in-betweens, you are going to become successful in this space.
Awesome. So what's the first step for people, like in our community, they're creating 1-minute videos, they've got stuff like on their iPhones, stored on their Apple iCloud and Google Photos. How, in like 5th grader language, what should they be doing?
Go to web.descript.com, create an account, and start bringing your content into there. And then utilize our AI agent, Underlord, to start editing your content. And be back and forth with the agent. It's the same as talking to a ChatGPT or a Claude. Interacting with the bot how you would interact with a friend or a colleague or a professional associate is how you want to interact and start to get editing. But the main thing is getting an account started and getting your content in there. You mentioned earlier, like, how do we get through editing? It's getting the context for the agent to start taking action. So the more you can put in, the more context you can provide is the best.
So backing up a step, for people that don't know what Underlord does and what you get it to do, explain like a day-to-day use case for that.
Absolutely. So like Underlord would again be our AI editing agent. I can go and Google search something, but I can go to an LLM and have that search done for me and be given the step ahead, the next options or the next pieces. Underlord is that inside of Descript. I can go through our transcription-based editing and manually remove text, but I can have that suggested to me from an LLM of my choosing or of an automated routing that allows for me to have the best possible edit or the best possible edit served to me.
So a lot of our folks are doing podcast interviews where we meet awesome people like you, Marcelo, and we'll have maybe a 20-minute or a longer piece that we want to cut into different pieces, into clips and shorts. How might we use Underlord to get that out there?
There's actually 2 different ways. One, we have something called templates inside of Descript. So templates are like a saved Underlord prompt. There's specifically one called Create Social Clips that would work specifically for that. But the same way that you just asked me, how would you ask that of a bot? I would almost type exactly that into Underlord. Hey, generate me 5 social clips of a certain duration around XYZ subject between myself and my co-host or my other speaker. We can even recognize who's speaking when. We have a speaker detection tool, so it'd be very easy for you to ask, hey, only isolate times Marcelo is speaking and give me clips based on that of this duration. But that's exactly the kind of prompt, like verbatim, that I would type into Underlord to make an edit.
It's crazy you can ask tools on how to use the tool.
Yeah.
My favorite thing is like remove all the ums and ahs.
Absolutely.
Get rid of all the conference noise in the background.
I'm the filler word king. That's the first button I click whenever I'm done with a recording, for sure.
Awesome. What else do people need to know about Descript?
I think harp back to our API stuff. I think that's our biggest focus on 2026. So keeping an eye on what we're doing currently with the API, the abilities that you have, and what we're going to come out with next are extremely important for this year. But I think that's what I would say is the focus, that and Underlord. Whether you're in the tool or outside of the tool, utilizing that AI editing agent to get to something faster is going to be the focus for 2026.
Do you know that I first met Andrew Mason like 10 years ago when he was doing
way back
the Groupon stuff?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
He was in my interview panel when I very first started at Descript. He was the last interview I had. I was scared out of my mind, and I go, "Did you make Groupon?" He goes, "Yes," and here we are now.
The dude that created Groupon for all those like restaurant deals and stuff like that is the dude that started the software that was for podcasters that did audio, and now it's moved into video and all that. And I think it's awesome. We pay, I don't know, $500 or $600 a month for a number of licenses, but it's so awesome because we will do podcasts and we even will record to Descript. And then a lot of people don't know Descript can actually publish to YouTube and publish to like, what do you say to people who say, well, I just really like all the Adobe suites, professional video editing, tools?
Yeah, I mean, I think professional comes down to like what your end product is, right? Some people prefer to use one tool or another. I'm a musician, right? I am a drummer by trade. I record in DAWs, in traditional audio workspaces, right? That's my choice for that product, that thing that I'm making. If I'm making narrative content, I'm never using a DAW to make like spoken word or narrative driven content. Because we have transcript based editing, I'm using Descript for things that have narrative focus versus a music software. So I think it's just approaching the tool with what you're looking for to use, whether it's an Adobe suite, which they have great products. There's other people at NAB here this week that people utilize in tandem with or in place of Descript. But I think at the end of the day, as a creative, what matters most is like the tool that works best for you and what you're trying to do.
All right, one more question. What do you think about, a lot of our folks are just overwhelmed with all these different tools, and because we're doing podcasts and chopping them up and stuff like that, we use things like Opus Clip. How does that overlap or work together?
Yeah, tool that you're looking for. Opus Clip and other clipping tools are a clipping tool, right? That's one of Descript's feature sets. We have an AI tool called Create Clips. Like I mentioned earlier, we have an Underlord prompt or a freehand option to create social clips. So I think it just depends on what you want out of that clip. Whether it is one tool or another, Descript can create clips, Descript can do remote recordings, Descript can do all these plethora of options. But if you are, Descript is a holistic editor, right? So I think for us, where we shine is the narrative piece. I feel like I would probably make the best podcast clips in Descript because I have text-based editing and I can make a clip from the text. If I were to make a clip of my song that I made in an audio recording tool, it might be different than a narrative edit. But I would make a clip of this with Descript maybe.
Yeah, and which hint, editor. So last question. The idea of like a harness or orchestrating a bunch of agents that are doing the work to use these different tools. Is there a place that you would recommend we go to, or a way to think about workflow, right? Because a lot of folks are like, okay, great, you have Underlord, it can do all these things, but I need an SOP and a workflow for these agents to operate and do their stuff. Like a whole team, right?
I think ask me in about 3 months when we have a little bit of a mature API, both like creative on our side and like users in the real world utilizing that. I'll ask you to check back in with us in a couple months to answer that one.
Well, thank you, Marcelo. Let's keep in touch.
My pleasure. Hey.
And you were here at the NAB Show, and we love interviewing people who are actual practitioners that do what they talk about. You can tell that this guy is an under the hood, like
I'm in there.
Yeah, that is awesome. So I encourage you, real experience, real Google EEAT, and this is the Coach U Show. We'll see you guys in the next episode.